Hey, I'm Professor Kobe, and two of the biggest concerns I hear from my students, especially my online students, are they have trouble with stress management and time management. That's why I've asked Dr. Angela De Dios, a psychology professor, to chat with me today to offer some suggestions that'll help students cope with the stress surrounding time management and, well, stress. So let's jump in and have a chat. Hi, welcome. So excited to be chatting today with Dr. Angela De Dios. And before we get into our discussion, I wanted to give a brief bio on this awesome person that is going to be giving some insight to us. All right, so Dr. De Dios is a tenured professor in psychology who's been teaching since 2011. She has her BA in psychology from USC, and then her MA and PhD in developmental psych from Clark University. So we've got quite the expert here to talk to us about time management and stress. So welcome, Dr. De Dios.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Awesome. So let's jump right in. First question for you is, what do you think are the top 3 time management strategies that college students can apply?
Yeah, so first off, I think that time management is incredibly important. And it's something that I think is the number one thing that I learned in college. Like beyond all of the psychology stuff, like just learning how to manage my time was just so important. So, first thing that I really learned was to have a very clear to-do list. So I do that even today. I have a list of all the things that I'd like to accomplish every single week, and I have them up on a board. And so every day when I'm like, okay, it's time for me to work, I can see visually like what I have to do and what I have to accomplish. It also helps me keep track of like how much am I actually doing this week and how much am I accomplishing and how much more do I have left to do. So it's nice to have sort of a clear set of things that you have to do. And whatever time period you think works best for you, like maybe a daily checklist is good, maybe a weekly. I think a week is probably the biggest that you want to go,
Yeah.
because otherwise beyond that, it's sort of hard to keep track. So my second big tip is to have a planner to record, especially things that have a deadline, some sort of due date. So I'm very old school. So I have my planner and I write in it every day, right? I write the things that are due. I write the things that I have meetings or when I was actually back in college, what I would do at the very beginning of the semester is I would take my planner, I would take all my syllabi, and I would go through and write down all of the due dates, all of the exam dates, everything that I needed to make sure I knew to do was already in my planner. So
So
it
for
was
the whole semester.
for the entire semester. Yeah,
Wow. Yeah.
so that I wasn't getting lost. It also helped me to keep track like, hey, I have 3 papers due this week of the semester. I better make sure that I don't schedule anything else for this week because I have all of them due around the same time. And that's outside of my control, of course, that
Right.
these due dates all happen to line up, but I can sort of schedule everything else around that. So it's nice to sort of have that done at the beginning of the semester.
Nice. So what's your third strategy?
My third strategy is to really to prioritize. And so this was something that I actually learned in college. I went to a time management workshop where they did this very visual thing that helped me see how important it is to prioritize the things that I need to do. So we have a bottle. This represents your time, right? And
Okay.
there's only finite space in this bottle. You cannot make your bottle bigger. We only have 24 hours every day. So a couple other representations. So we've got rice here. This represents sort of all of the little things that add up in your day, like swiping through your Instagram feed or, like getting distracted by something, right? These are all those little things. All right. And then we also have the big things in your life, the priorities, the things that you consider to be really important that you want to be dedicating your time to. Now, if you really are honest with yourself and you think about how you spend your time versus what your priorities are, they don't necessarily always line up. So learning how to prioritize and to give your priorities the front and center is really incredibly important because it's really easy to just go through your day and you sort of get distracted, you spend time on your phone and you do that stuff first, right? You do that whenever you feel like it. You're like, oh yeah, like I need a little break. I'm just gonna swipe for a little bit before you know it, an hour has passed, right? So if you do that first and you sort of just do whatever you feel like doing, And then you're like, oh, shoot, I gotta do my homework. Oh, shoot, you know what? I have to spend time with my family. Or, you know what? I have a lot of like chores and stuff to do. And, I really want to get a workout in so I can be healthy. Well, it doesn't fit anymore, right? You can see that
Mm-hmm.
you're tapped out. You don't have any more time. You don't have any more space. And you say, oh, well, it's just because I'm too busy. But if you actually take the time to prioritize the things that are important and you dedicate your time to those first, struggling with my race here a little bit.
That's all right. We're hearing it. I'm guessing what's coming next. I love the visual.
So you want to make sure that you do the things that are important first.
Right.
So for me, these priorities are getting my work done. I have a lot of work as an instructor, so I want to get that stuff done. Spending time with my family. I have a growing daughter. I want to make sure that I'm there and that I'm present and that I'm with her. I also have a lot of things to do to make my household run, right? Like doing the chores and doing the grocery shopping and making sure that everybody's fed. That's a big piece of my life too. And lastly, and certainly not the least, is I prioritize self-care. So I do things like I do yoga, I meditate, I play the piano. Like these are things that sort of help me de-stress. And so that's really important to me too.
And they fit.
And they fit. And then for all of that other extra stuff, if you want to, if you take care of those priorities first, then you actually have more than enough space for everything else to fit.
I love that. I love that visual of prioritize, make those big things come first, and we can wiggle. So we can still swipe, as needed.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm not saying that, you have to just do work all the time, because that is not reasonable, but making sure that you prioritize what you need to do first. So one of the ways that I do that first and foremost is to have a schedule.
Okay.
So having a schedule, that way I know, okay, I'm dedicating this much time to this priority. I'm dedicating this much time to this priority. And I know that those things will get taken care of because I've scheduled it in. Then if there's open room in my schedule, or if I finish the thing that I need to finish ahead of time, then I can do all that other fun rice stuff, all those little extras.
So are you really specific? How do you make this schedule?
Yeah, so I basically do it on an Excel spreadsheet. I have like all the times, like the time that I wake up, I schedule everything in there. Like at this time, I'm going to work on things for statistics. At this time, I'm going to work on things for research methods. At this time, I'm going to take care of my daughter, right? So I really break it down. And I think that that's important. That's an important piece, especially when you are looking at those priorities. You want to make sure that each of those have a slot in your day. And so going and even scheduling things like stopping to eat lunch. I used to be mad about like eating lunch on the go and like multitasking, but you need a break, right? So scheduling in that time for yourself to stop and to eat, or to stop and to do some physical activity is important, because again, that's one of my priorities.
Actually, do you have an example you could share with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is my schedule that I follow. Clearly, we have a lot going on here. I like to color code. That's just me.
Love it.
And so each of these are really my priorities, right? So we've got childcare here in like this pink color. We've got work here in this blue color. And then green is really sort of my self-care downtime. And so what you'll see is that I put specific things in there. So here in work, right, it'll say like grading or email students or prep class content. So it's really specific, and I'm mindful of like, okay, I need specific time to do grading, or I need specific time to email my student.
Yeah, that specificity seems to be really huge. And then you've created a system that works for you and your family. So this everyone doesn't have to apply this green, blue, pink option, but something like this that really works for your family. That's great.
Exactly. And this is really just my example, but of course you want to make sure that you do whatever works for you.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah, of course.
So let's check out one more question. I saw that awesome spreadsheet. I'm sure you adapted something like that in college, but if you could go back and create some sort of spreadsheet or scheduling or time management option, how would you go back and change something from your undergraduate time?
Yeah, I think that a lot has changed since I was an undergraduate, especially with all the technology that we have available to us. So this was all really sort of old school, right? Like I'm like, planner. But if I were to go back, I'd probably utilize my technology a lot better. Like I would set up, like my calendar app in my phone, and I would make sure that those deadlines are in there. I would set alarms, right? So a lot of times when we're like, okay, I'm going to take a break, right? And that's good. You need to take a break once in a while. but that break turns from the 15 minutes we intended into an hour and a half binge watching session, right? So setting a timer on your phone, I think, is so helpful. For me, that helps too. And I try to hold myself accountable like that as well, even today. Like when I'm like, okay, I'm going to break for 30 minutes, I'll set a timer. And once that timer goes off, I'm like, okay, time to go back to work.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that. I tell the A lady who's in the room with me right now, I don't want to say her name. I asked her to time me so it doesn't feel like I did it to myself. So I like that. I'm not controlling it. She told me I had to go back to work.
Right, exactly.
Awesome. Thanks. That's really great to incorporate tech. Next question for you. What resources would you recommend college students utilize? Now, you mentioned tech, but particularly at their college, are there any resources they can utilize to help with time management?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. The wonderful thing about colleges, I think, is that they provide so many resources for students that a lot of students don't know about and therefore don't take advantage of. It's going to differ from college to college, of course, but at our college, for example, we have dedicated counselors who are there to help you with time management and study skills, which is really awesome. So you can look into things like counseling, you can look into places like DSS, into tutoring, EOPS. There's so many different programs available for students. I feel like a lot of students struggle with college because they feel like they have to do everything alone, like they have to do everything themselves. But we're here to help you. Like our goal is to help you through this process and to help you to be successful. So really utilizing those resources available, I think, is important.
Awesome. And I love that. That's such a misconception. You and I have talked about this before, is that students don't have to do this alone. You don't have to. Find an instructor, find a counselor, find a service that you can just talk to help you with those issues, including time management, or connect you to someone who is, like you, an expert on these sorts of things. So it's awesome. All right, let's turn this over. That's kind of related. Stress management. That's tied in with time management. But what would you say are the top stress management strategies that college students can apply?
Yeah. So as I've mentioned, for me, self-care is really a priority because stress is real. Like we lead very stressful lives. We're busy. We have a lot of things on our plate. And so being able to manage that stress is going to help you, because I'll tell you what, when you're really stressed out, you're not going to have the capacity to do all the things that you need to do. So stress management is incredibly important. So number one, and I'm a psychologist here, so I have like a lot of sort of science background in this stuff. So number one is mindfulness. The idea about mindfulness is just an awareness of where you are currently in a non-judgmental way. So that means just focusing on the here and now and not worrying about like, oh, am I doing it right? Or I don't feel relaxed enough. Is that wrong? So just like being able to be present. And there's a ton of science behind this that says that mindfulness is really, really great for reducing stress. It's also really great for helping with cognitive ability. It's great for sleep. Like it's great in so many of these different ways. So you might be thinking, well, what is mindfulness? Because that's sort of not very tangible, right? Like non-judgmental awareness. There's so many different ways that you can practice mindfulness. One is just by mindful breathing, right? So just like focusing on your breath, taking a deep breath in, maybe counting in for 4 breaths or 4 seconds and then breathing it out, right? And just doing that for a couple of cycles can help you feel really centered. Now, while you're breathing, it's very tempting to think about all the other things that you have to do, or maybe worrying about a conversation you had yesterday that's still sort of bothering you. And when that happens, that's okay. Our mind wanders. But to just try and bring that attention back to your breathing, that's one example of mindfulness. Some other examples are things like yoga, meditation, even playing an instrument, because when you're playing an instrument, you're really focused on the music, your whatever. I play the piano, so what my fingers are doing and where they're placed. So like that's being very like here and now. So yeah, picking up something like that, whatever you feel comfortable with. Like I said, mindfulness can be done in so many different areas.
I appreciate that so much. And again, like the schedule, you're giving us however we want to be able to apply that, but with intention. The goal of this activity, whatever this is to be mindful, to be present, to be here, like you've said. Take more of those restorative breaths.
Exactly.
So any other suggestions?
Yeah, absolutely. So another suggestion I have is any sort of physical activity. So again, it's whatever you like to do. I happen to do yoga, and so that's sort of paired with the mindfulness. But even just going out for a walk, if you have a favorite workout, like if you do, I don't know, like CrossFit or whatever it is that you are really into, that helps to increase endorphins, and endorphins help us cope with stress. And so not only from a like sort of mental health perspective, but from a physical perspective, it really helps to calm down our nervous system.
That's great. Awesome. And any others? Any other ideas for stress management support? You've given us two awesome ones.
Yeah, I got one last one for you. The last one is social support. Having people who you can talk to, who you can spend time with, who help you sort of take a break from whatever it is that you're struggling with. Again, from a psychological perspective, having that social support or positive social interactions with people helps to increase our level of oxytocin. Oxytocin is a hormone that helps us to cope with stress. And so this social support not only feels good, but it is physically good for us and for helping us to reduce stress.
All right, some oxytocin, those deep breaths. I
Yeah.
love it. Those are some real great tips. I'm going to definitely have to apply. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so as we close out, are there any other final piece of advice? Is there anything else you want to share with college students, especially as so many of us are navigating distance education right now?
Yeah, so with distance education, you really are in charge of your time management. And I'm going to tell you, when you first start doing this and you start trying to incorporate some of these things we've talked about, it's hard. You're not used to it. It's difficult. And it's really tempting to be like, you know what? I tried it. It doesn't work for me. But just because it didn't work today doesn't mean that you should just throw it out and give it up, right? It's about waking up every day and being like, okay, I'm going to try this again. I'm going to try and stick to my schedule. I'm going to make sure that I get my priorities done first. And some days it's not going to be something that you can do. On other days, it's going to be better, but you just have to keep coming up, keep showing up, and keep trying.
I love that. I love that. And as you're saying that, I was thinking about the rice and the balls in there. Was like, okay, as many days as I can get all of the balls in the jar is great, but not every day. That's
Right.
awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, being realistic about that.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Dr. Diaz. We've learned so much from you. I'm going to go get Excel open right now and create a spreadsheet. But good luck to you as you navigate the rest of distance education and your teaching and professing with your students. Thank you for your time.
Thanks so much.